Please write in the chat where you are watching from. And if you have a question for Jeffrey Hayzlett, Chairman of the C-Suite Network. Welcome to Authority Advantage Live, where we grapple and explore what makes accomplished leaders seen, trusted, and chosen. Because being chosen is not a 1-minute thing. It's not a great big opportunity. It is a progression. It requires consistency. And so we're going to be discussing influence, visibility, and opportunity, the intersection of those things. I'm so delighted to welcome my guest, Jeffrey Hayzlett. Jeffrey has spent a career helping leaders to make greater influence and impact. He is the chairperson of the C-Suite Network and its founder, a Hall of Fame speaker, television and podcast guest, owner of the network, and a best-selling author, and former Fortune 100 Chief Marketing Officer. Jeffrey, I am so excited that you are here.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those of you in the audience, if you would like to put in the chat where you're calling in from, we'd love to hear from you. And we would also love some questions for Jeffrey. So, Jeffrey, I'm going to start with my first question, and that is, you've built such an extraordinary career across so many areas: corporate leadership, media, publishing, and entrepreneurship. As you look back, was there a moment when you realized that authority was far more than a title, that it was something much bigger?
Oh, I mean, from the days that I was a small kid, I realized about authority. I mean, my father was in the military. My mother was a bookkeeper, but she was the one that held the family together. She was the one that was one of the enforcers. When you think about authority, there's a lot of different ways to look at it. But she was the authority about life. He was the authority about certain other things. But then in the boardrooms and the places that I've been able to be at, you find pretty quick, you'd look around. I remember early on, I was in my 40s when I became chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak. And I'd look around thinking, somebody's got to do something about this place, And then I realized, I looked around for who's in charge, and I realized it was me. So, and you learn quickly how to, take authority, who's in authority, who's really got the power, who doesn't have the power, and who gets things done, who doesn't get things done. So it's it's different degrees of the way in which you want to put that. It's not always the person with the big title that's the authority, right? Or that's in charge, right? And so we learn, but the power of authority is something, in terms of being that expert, being that thought leader now that you have to be. I mean, whether you're a company or you're an individual, that's what we have to do. And so, yeah, without question. And, I learned real quickly in my career that, take charge and go, and I've always been that kind of person anyway, but in the bigger companies where I had billions and billions of dollars at risk, you learn quickly, or you die quickly. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that we are joined by lots of people here. We have people calling in from Sioux Falls, from Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's see, from Reno, Nevada, from Minneapolis. Let's see.
And I'm calling in from Roatan, and I went off of Honduras today. It's I'm here laying out some retreat centers and everything that we're doing with the C-suite network, and
Fabulous.
my own personal home as well. But there's lots going on. Yeah, enjoying it.
Yes. Okay. We've got someone from St. Louis, somebody from Raleigh, somebody from Paramus, New Jersey.
Paramus, yeah, that's right
Dallas.
outside of New York City.
Dallas. Me, I'm from Minneapolis. Let's see here. Who else? Bogota. So Zhao is here. Chicky Fitzgerald is calling in from Tampa, and Fort Lauderdale we have, and Superior, Wisconsin. All right. Thank you all for being here. So, Jeffrey, through the C-Suite Network and your television shows and your podcasts and your speaking, you've met thousands of senior level people, really accomplished people. When you decide who to feature or who to work with, what distinguishes those people from all those others?
Being interesting. You know, the worst thing in the world you could have is on a show, a TV show, is or a podcast, and you ask somebody a question and they just shake their head. No, you need people who are, energetic and people who are in the moment and paying attention and being involved. And it's critical. And so I'm always looking for that. I'm looking for great conversations, especially when it's more podcast than TV show, because people really truly want to, you're inside someone's head, so you really want to have a great conversation. And so to me, those are the best interviews and what I typically try to look for.
Fabulous. So they have to be more than their position.
Yeah, more than the position. I mean, the position alone doesn't mean, again, getting back to this authority, doesn't mean you're the authority. Just because you're the CMO of the company or the CEO or CMO, so therefore, I'm looking for people. Yeah, again, interesting. I'm going to learn. I like people I can learn from, and I think I also like a little bit of entertainment too. Whether the entertainment value is in the learning or the entertainment value is just in the stories and everything else that person. I mean, you can see the interviews that I do, the ones that I'm really enjoying more than others, right? Like Brandon Steiner was on. Somebody said they watched that show and they loved the two of us were laughing. We're having a ball back and forth. But I've had some major researchers on and different things, and I'm learning, and I really like that. Mike Williams is another one. That Mike is the president of One Summit Vanderbilt. It's one of the most iconic sites in New York City. I do know they're building out other sites that they've publicly announced that. I got to be careful what I've been told and what I can say publicly.
Yes.
They are a publicly traded company, and I happen to know things sometimes. So, but they'll build some similar. They're going to build other. Why shouldn't they? They should, because it's a massive success. So, but Mike is just one of those great, fun guys. And by the way, I'm a big person. He's twice the size I am. And he's just a massive guy. He's massive. But we've always been good friends. I've been a little bit of a mentor to him as well. And I always learn from him even if you're mentoring somebody, you learn from somebody, you learn compassion, you learn the giving, you learn all kinds of different things. So that's what I like. I like that. That's what I like,
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Now you got me going. I had the president of FIFA on here recently before the World Cup started in the United States and throughout Americas. Then I had, I'm just thinking of all these people. I had the chairman of Bali Gambling, all gaming. That was a great interview. It's just some really fun people. I have some friends back on. Keith Kroc was back on. Keith and I always have a good time. Keith was the youngest executive ever at GM. He became chairman of Purdue. He was the founder of Ariba, sold that for $6 billion. Then went on and worked with DocuSign. I didn't start it. A guy named Tom started it, and Tom took a different role and brought Keith in to become the CEO, and then Keith eventually became the chairman. So yeah, all kinds of people.
Fabulous, fabulous. So I'd like to ask the audience if you have a question that you would be interested in Jeffrey's opinion on. I would love to see those in the chat. And thank you especially to Molly Christensen and Sayer Darling, who are kind of taking some notes based on what they're seeing in Jeffrey's conversation. So can you think of someone that you have encountered who has built extraordinary influence, not by seeking out the spotlight for themselves, but because of the way that they show up consistently?
Yeah, some of my mentors. I mean, there's 4 men in my life that, and I say men, there've been women too, but these are 4 men that were mentors to me when I was much younger, and nobody would know them, so to speak. There was a guy named John Timmer who was a state legislator in South Dakota, and he owned an insurance business. And John stood for integrity. I mean, he did things when it was not popular because they were the right things to do. A guy named Michael Connor, who I bought a printing operation from, who taught me the value of a Z-out printout. Most people won't know what I'm talking about, but you used to hit this little cash register and they had keys and they had an X and a Y and a Z. And each one of those programmed what the cash register did for the day. And so when you hit a Z out, that was like what you did for the whole day. And so he showed me the value of, printing that out and then comparing what you were doing against what you did the day before, against what you did last week, what you did last month, what you did cumulatively for the year, cumulatively against last year, last month of that year. I mean, all those kinds of things. So that was the, the data analytics. And Mike was a great guy. He was hard-headed as hell, but he was a great guy. And I helped him run for governor at one point in his career. And he was a county commissioner and just a good man. And then, guys like Fred Pinson. Fred was a plumber. He was a plumber. And when a young kid needed a job, he gave me a job. And, and I made my very first paycheck ever. I remember it was $80 and that was big money back then.
Oh, yeah.
And, I went out and bought presents for my family and everything. And I remember that was the big thing. And I even got myself a tennis racket. I thought that was pretty cool. And I learned to play tennis that summer. I was about 14. It was pretty 13 or 14. And then a guy named Harold Jones was a Marine gunnery sergeant. And he worked on it. He was a gunner on a helicopter in the Vietnam War. And when he got out of the service, my father was still over there. He, had kind of adopted me, and he and his wife, Gail, took care of me. And that day, and by the way, we had such a relationship when they finally had children, they named their first son after me, so,
that's so cool.
What a cool honor. Yeah. And I'm still in touch with them today. I lost touch with them as we did during those time periods, 70s, 80s. And then in the 90s, they finally found him again. And it was quite the reunion. And he had passed the year before, but I got a chance to talk to his wife and went down and saw him. One day I was in St. Louis and drove down to Cape Girardeau and spent the day with her and her daughter and her son. And it was they'd heard stories about me, so it was fun. That was always fun. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sayer has a question, and it is, how do you define authority in a way that different generations can relate to it?
Wow, that's a great question. To me, it's a go-to person. It's the go-to person, the go-to, expert that, as an authority. I also look at as authority, like who's, in charge and who's got the leadership, to me, those are the kind of things that you tend to see. So I look at it differently. So that's how I see it, is those, basically those two ways, the go-to person and the person that's in charge. That, that's how I see it, the boss, the authority, and I see both of those they can be the same, but they can also be different. And that's how I would see it.
Okay, let's see. I have a question from Jay, and let's see, it's just skipped. What do you think about older entrepreneurs wanting to rejoin the workforce in the C-suite? Is that bad optics?
No, I don't see bad optics about that at all. I see it as an opportunity to be, innovative and bring the experience that you've got. I serve on numerous corporate boards. I serve on 14 corporate boards. I'm constantly being called by companies all over the world to give them input, because of the vast experience I've got. And that's not bragging when it's true. It is. That's what I've been there, done that, seen that over and over and over. And so that's a value today. That's extreme value. If you look at it, when you especially look at boards parity, right now, almost all boards are being replaced by people of color or women, which they should be. Now, it's still tough, for women to get that. But at the same time, I'm still getting board appointments, board requests. And the reason for that is because of my experience, my Rolodex, which most people, young people
Sure.
wouldn't even know what a Rolodex is, but my contact list, because it's impressive. And it's impressive because I built that up over decades, 45 years of working in companies, that's what allows me to be able to do what I'm doing and the way I'm doing it.
I think one of the impressive things is that consistency of keeping up with the people that you've identified are important to you.
Yeah.
This story about going to visit the mentor's widow and family is really an impressive thing because it involved travel and intentionality, and that speaks to who you are. And I appreciate that. So there is a LinkedIn user, unidentified LinkedIn user, asking a question. Okay, the question is, Jeff, times have changed since I interviewed you in my office in Chicago 15 years ago. This is a mystery person here.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, let's see. It just jumped. Okay, who are some of the up-and-coming pundits that you admire with points of view worth spending time listening to?
It's fun. I'm probably addicted, like most people, watching reels and doing different things. I reached out today to Morgan Stanley because they have a brand new show that's out there. I saw another show today that I hadn't seen yet, but it was here. I'll tell you the exact name of the show. Where I'm recruiting for new shows. It's called School of Hard Knocks. A young kid. My apologies to him. I'm sure he's not as young as a kid, but when I say young kid, when you're 65 years old, you can say young kid to everybody that's younger than you. And if you don't like it, well, let's have a healthy debate about it. That's the way it works. It's not derogatory in any way. That's just how I talk. So, but this young man, is building up. He's got over 2 million subscribers. And, he's asking questions to get people to do it. So not so much a pundit as he's just eliciting great conversations. And then from that, you get the pundicy from the person they're asking. Because he interviewed James Keys the other day. And James, I've known James for decades. And James, former CEO of 7-Eleven, former CEO of Blockbuster, former this. He's wonderful author. He's actually got a show on our network as well, and he did a super job. And he's interviewing these. I like people like that. I'm watching the former pardon attorney for the United States government talking about what's going on in the administration, and she makes you think, so I like pundits like that. I like the opportunity to be able to get to hear and talk to different people, and many times to our user in Chicago. I'm not sure who that is because I've done a lot of interviews over the years, and
I have the answer.
Who is it?
It is Dr. Stephen J. London.
Oh, I know. Well, fantastic. Yeah, I know exactly. I'm not as good as Mary Lou Henner. Mary Lou Henner was on the Celebrity Apprentice with me years ago, back in I think 2007 or 8, and She has an identical, she could, perfect memory. She can remember what day we met, what our
Oh,
conversations, what I was wearing, who I'm married to, everything. And so she's amazing. I don't have that, but I have a fairly decent one of remembering people's
names.
names and connections. I've just been able to do that, and I've always tried to do that. So it's kind of cool.
It is cool. People light up when you remember their name.
Oh,
Um,
always, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
or you forget it and you can make fun of it and have fun. We had somebody this weekend who kept calling this guy. His name was Greg, and kept calling him Eddie. And
Oh,
finally, and the guy finally said something to him. Said, "Hey, Eddie," and the guy didn't even miss a beat and just kept going. And he never. And I said, because he never heard you say Eddie, because he just assumed you're saying his name. So for some people, we pay attention to different things.
yeah.
This guy was treating him well, was having a good time. They had good chemistry. So he didn't care what he was being called. He had no clue. He just thought he was being called that, so that was great. But
How fun.
on the pundits, I like to listen to people who cause tension. I like to listen to people who cause more healthy tension than just pontificating. I did not care for like Rush Limbaugh. I do not care for people who are bombastic. I care for people
Mhm.
who want to have a great conversation. And I'm not saying you can't do that with Rush, God rest his soul, but I like people I can have great conversation. My job with you and for most people is not to change your mind, it's just to understand you.
Yeah,
We get to the position that we are. It's difficult for us to change our minds. It's difficult for us to move off. I'm one of those people. Well, I know certain things I believe to be true, but at the same time, I'm open that there's always a different way. And
yeah.
I think I look for pundits like that. That's the pundits that I like, and they could come from anywhere. I just realized I was last night. I was out with a major family office, billions of dollars, and the chairman of that family office, and we were talking about projects, and we got to talking about a bad experience that he had and I had with somebody, and it was somebody who believed in themselves bigger than they were. And what I said to him, as I said, no matter how big you think you are, there's always someone bigger. And if that's been something that's been ingrained in me. So don't go in assuming you know everything.
Yes. Well, I appreciate even in the C-suite network, the ethos is we can talk about anything, but not divisively. Talk
Yeah,
for understanding,
yeah.
and
And
I
you should be able to come at it with a feeling that, hey, I'm going to say something because I'm ignorant in it, or I don't know as much as you do. So if I do, it wasn't intended to do it that way. During the height of Black Lives Matter, I would have guests on my show that were people of color, and I said, look, you have to give me the leeway. Or if I talk to someone's gay or lesbian, transgendered, I don't know what I don't know. And so if I say it wrong, it's not intent. The intent isn't bad. It's just I don't know better. you know
yeah,
I do this with my daughter and my granddaughter all the time, because
yeah.
she's rearing my granddaughter into this beautiful, confident individual. And I'll say things like, hey, little one. And
Oh.
okay, I shouldn't say little one, but she's little. Okay. but
Yeah,
but
especially
I'm
in comparison to you.
Yeah, well, exactly, because all my grandchildren are just beautiful, beautiful young women, and beautiful individuals, and confident and unbelievable. But I say it like that because I used to call her Pumpkin. Well, maybe I can't do that anymore. Now I got to come better words, and better
Yeah,
phrases. But luckily I got a son-in-law who says, "Hey, Dad, I mess up all the time," and he's her husband. So there you go. So
yeah.
we should be able to do that. But I had like I remember this during COVID. I had somebody. It was a sergeant of the police department in Los Angeles during the height of the Minneapolis issues that were going up there, and then someone said, "Hey, I don't see color on the show in our
Mhm.
audience," and I had like 2,000 people on at the time, and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." I went to the sergeant, and she was African American. I said, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but you're black," and she started laughing. And I said, "I want you, I want you to know I see color. It's what we do with it that's
Yeah.
different, and we
Yeah.
should recognize the difference. We should recognize that we're different. That's what makes us cooler together. It's not so
Yes.
much that we're same, but we can celebrate the differences and learn from the differences and understand that makes us more the same." So that's kind of my.
Yes. I'm going to ask you another question. If you were coaching a very accomplished executive who wanted to create more opportunity for themselves in the next year, where would you encourage them to spend their energy first?
Well, without question, it's going to be around two ways. First of all, introspectively, like look inside to say, what problem do I want to solve? What condition of satisfaction do I want to have occur? So I know what the end game is, right? At least some direction. Doesn't have to be the exact thing, but it's got to be a goal, which is a statement of intent, right? So my goal is to do this, all right? And then, quite frankly, I think, especially you said experience, I'm going to take that to also be older, okay? And not that they go hand in hand, but with age comes great wisdom and
You hope.
experience. Yeah, well, I think so. And so it's got to be in the area of AI in terms of how that is changing, the way it's changing, and to have the fundamentals and go deeper than what most people are. Most people are grabbing tools off. I mean, I'm walking around, I'm watching with somebody who is an attorney and is walking around with an AI microphone that runs 24/7.
Ooh.
And this was a major high level attorney, Fortune 10 kinds of companies. And I said, turn that off. And they go, why? I said, we're going to have confidential conversations. I don't want those recorded. I don't, think about if you and I are talking about, a formula or, some really heavy IP, and that's now discoverable over here. So I think we have to learn, what drives the things that we're doing, and not just that it's convenient for us to use these tools, because there's a lot of things that are convenient for me to use with AI and the automation of AI, but it is also a lot of dangerous things that could occur
Absolutely.
with it taking over and doing different things. Somebody was telling me the other day, I was watching an example where I can't remember, I think it was Tony Robbins or somebody, in a conversation I was having. Yeah, it was Tony, that he has a bot, and the bot went out and bought something for him, but the bot doesn't have his credit card or money. No, the bot joined another group with other bots and then started selling them NFTs, and then they made enough money where the bot could buy this thing. It was like, wow. I don't know if I want all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one question that I always in my interviews with, and here it is. What is one thing that you hope that leaders who are listening today will do differently tomorrow based on our conversation?
Understand that authority is not always what you think it is, and it could come in different ways. I think that's one. And then the other thing I would always tell them is listen. I don't think we do enough listening.
Listening.
And I think, we tend to jump into conversations quicker and so forth. And I think listening sometimes is, that's a virtue that most of us could do a little bit better with.
Yes. Well, consistency is one of them that I would recommend as well. And you do that very well.
Yeah.
So,
and I just saw Lee just said she calls her 30-year-old son Pumpkin. There you go.
yes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and helping us to make a bigger impact. And thank you for all those people who were listening live and all of you who will be listening to the replay. I hope that you found value here. If you have a nugget from our conversation, an idea that you want to implement, I hope you'll take action today, certainly tomorrow, and keep that consistency going, because consistency is what elevates being seen to being trusted, and can also elevate being trusted to being chosen. I'm Carol Kaemmerer, and I'm glad that you were here. Thanks so much.